But he looked at me and he said, "You got 6 months, kid." And he said, "I want to give you your Broadway debut. And in 6 months, you're gonna be too tall, but we really want you to be in this cast." And so that just, my childhood dream came true, and I was still a child. And it was the craziest thing ever.
Hey guys, my name is Jeff McMahon, and I play the piano for people. I've played on some big records, played on some big stages, and I've played with some big stars. Big or small, they're all the same. Taking someone with a dream, playing their song, and trying to get them further up the ladder. So that's what we'll do here. Have a conversation, maybe shine a light, and play some music. And I'll be on piano. This is McMahon on keys.
No way.
So we are rolling.
We're okay. The Rowley's rolling.
Yep. Emma Rowley, you are rolling.
He's rolling.
Welcome to McMahon on keys.
Thank you.
Did you know that you were going to wind up here?
I mean, I knew today.
Yeah. I got this little phone call that said, "Are you only wanting to talk to country people?" I was like, no.
So, all are welcome.
Yes. We have a mutual friend that is a big admirer of yours.
We do.
Yeah.
And it goes both ways. She is the best, Maddie True. She was a bridesmaid in my wedding a couple years ago. Yeah, she is a forever friend for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love her.
Well, I know that she's a big fan of yours as well.
Oh.
In fact, you probably, I'm sure you know this, but the way you kind of came full circle to me was I am friends with Malia's family.
Yeah.
Who was the little girl that wrote the song with Maddie.
Yep.
And Maddie pulled you into that.
Yes.
Because you wrote Maddie's first song with her.
Yep.
Which everyone can go back and get that story if they go back and listen to Maddie's episode.
Yeah. Great story too. I don't know, I just, all the time when we're writing together now too, I think about that, and it's wild. Time goes on and it feels like another lifetime. Look how far we've come, and we were just 2 kids in college that we're just trying to figure it out, and she's doing such great stuff now. I'm just so proud of her. But
well, are you older than her? Were you ahead of her in school?
Yeah, by 1 year.
Okay.
And I'll never, ever forget. I don't remember the moment I met her, but I remember those moments meeting her and getting to know her at first at school, because I was a sophomore and she was a freshman.
Okay.
It was the very beginning of that school year, and she quickly pinpointed who was in the country ensemble in the School of Music where we were attending Belmont University. I was one of those people. And I just admired her tenacity of just finding who those people were and realizing those are my people and I want to be a part of that group. And you couldn't do it until you were out of your first year of college. But she just started introducing herself and was so confident and very brave. And I was struggling with that at that point in my life and having that confidence in myself. And she just exuded that. And instantly I was like, my dad's always said to me, he's like, you should really try to surround yourself with people that you admire, that you look up to in some way, that are showing qualities that you hope to embody yourself. And she had that. Yeah. And just her aura. And I was like, you are awesome. You're genuine, you're sweet, and you're really determined to get what you want. And I want to be like that too. And quickly we started to become friends, and then she realized that my now husband had a crush on me before I realized it.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah, she, a few months later, was poking fun at, like, I knew before you. Kip liked you. She's a great wing woman to have on your team.
Well, you were talking about how you appreciated qualities in her. I would just point to in her interview, which I was not prepared for. I thought I had, Malia, the girl that you both had written with, I knew that it would have an impact on her. I thought it would make her smile. I was not prepared for the tears.
I know.
But I want you to remember that the reason she teared up is because she so appreciated the role that you played with her.
Yeah.
That she got to play that role with Malia. And she valued it so much that she didn't expect to be in that position herself.
Yeah.
So that's to your credit.
That's like so huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then for her to have that emotional reaction and to feel that way. And I think about people who have affected me in that way and the fact that I affected her in that way. And now she's having that experience is like, it just further reminds me of like why I choose to do or say certain things in my music or it's like everything you do. There's a lot of artists that are very successful and I've heard them say in interviews before that they don't feel like it necessarily is their responsibility to like take on the impressions that they give others or just the way that other people maybe like take their art and view it and maybe aren't approving of like the things that they do. And it's like, well, it's not my job to be your role model necessarily.
Right.
And, all right. Like I respect that point of view. But I feel differently. And I think that just in life too, like it's when you're like something I love about my husband that I was so impressed when I first started hanging out with him is we went out to eat somewhere and the server was wearing a name tag and he made a point to thank them and say their name.
Yeah. And
that just really stuck with me. I was like, I just watched that person's face completely transform.
Yeah.
And I don't know, you take ownership with how you go through life and interact with other people. Sure. And, it's just really cool to see how my friendship with Maddie, how that it's just naturally come to this place where now she's able to like, it's the whole domino effect. It's the butterfly effect. It's whatever you want to call it, know? And she did things for me and continues to all the time that affect me in a way that then I go and I give that energy to someone else too.
Right.
Right.
No, I mean, you have to. And I mean, I say you have to. Why wouldn't you want to? I don't understand the alternative. I mean, if you and I were to go have breakfast at the Waffle House tomorrow, the first thing I would have to say is don't start cooking my breakfast yet because they will often throw my regular order on the grill when they see my car pull in. I'll be like, no, Emma's coming. You gotta wait.
Exactly.
But at the same time, I mean, that's the Waffle House. I remember we did a big benefit show when Nashville flooded years ago. I was playing in Tim McGraw's band and we had a whole bunch of artists come up and do 2 songs each for the whole night. And we had an hour rehearsal the day before the show with each individual artist. And the night of the show, one of those artists was Amy Grant. And when we did the show, she called the soloists by name. She referred to Darren playing the solo, or Dino playing the fiddle. And it's because she had made a point to learn those names that rehearsal the day
Yeah.
before. And so she could do that.
Yeah.
And I was like, that was a class move.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's the one time I ever talked to Vince Gill and I told him the story about Andy Grant.
But see that, you're sitting here telling me that story because it stuck with you, because it mattered, you know?
Yeah.
So that is really cool.
So am I surprised that you were in the country ensemble at Belmont?
Oh, I'm sure very.
Okay.
I would assume you're probably.
Well, because I know a lot of the things that you've been involved in, we're going to talk about them.
Yeah.
I would not have expected that.
Yeah.
So when I read about a pivot, is that part of the pivot?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, we'll find out how you get there. I know that I don't talk about a lot of this stuff. I know some of it, not as much as you do, but I know that from a performance standpoint, you would now be listed as a pop artist, I guess.
Yeah.
But you started out on Broadway.
I did.
And on Broadway means literally New York City,
yes.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
Now, your experience would have been very different than mine. But the first record album I remember owning was the fold-out. It had a fold-out cover. It was one album. Was the soundtrack to Oliver.
Oh, that's a great show.
And I knew all of those songs as a kid. I remember seeing it in the movie theater.
Yeah.
The film, which had a bunch. I want to say it was nominated for 11 Academy Awards the year it came out, which was, I want to say 68, 69. I was 5 years old at the time.
Okay.
So I could be mushing all that up, but I definitely had the record album.
Okay.
And knew the songs.
That's so great.
And you were actually in that show at a young age.
I wasn't an Oliver.
You weren't an Oliver?
No.
Okay.
But that is a show that
that was just a reference of kids, all the kids' roles that you were playing. Okay.
I remember my poor parents didn't know what to do with me. They're not musical. They play the radio really well. But
now, you didn't live in New York City. You lived how close to the city?
I grew up outside of Washington, D.C. in Virginia.
Okay.
So driving, it's roughly 5 hours. And I, as a child, was just so into music specifically, but my parents would turn on a lot of like musical movies, so then that got me really into theater, and I loved to dance, and then that obviously naturally plays into theater as well. And I quickly started to run out of opportunities in the town I lived in, because at the time it was much smaller than it is today. And my parents would take me just to see shows at like Wolf Trap or at the Kennedy Center in DC, and specifically shows that had kids in them whenever they would come through. And I said to my mom one time, we're sitting in the audience, like, Mom, I want to be one of those kids. Like, how do I do that? She's like looking at me like, I don't know. Like, my parents are the opposite of like the stage parent trope. Okay. That is not my parents whatsoever. And I think that part of like our life experience as a family really affected the way that my parents then were raising me. So I had a brother who died at 7 months old with a brain tumor. And I was 5 at the time. And that experience just totally shifted their whole outlook on life and time and how you're using your time. And
live for the moment.
Yeah.
Capitalize on opportunities.
Definitely. Yeah. And here they had me, who I was so passionate about this thing that they knew nothing about. But in asking my mom, how can I be one of those kids in one of those shows? She just started looking on the internet out of curiosity and then saw an open call audition for Annie, the national tour in New York.
Okay.
And my parents were like, maybe we'll just go for the weekend. She'll get to have the experience.
Right.
And then we'll sightsee the rest of the time.
Right.
Well, there was no sightseeing because out of, I think like 600 girls, they narrowed it down to like 20 and I was still there.
Wow.
And it got to the point where someone from the casting team came in when all the kids were out of the room in with the parents. And it's like, hey, if you're not serious about your kid doing this, we are going to have to ask you to leave because like every child is seriously being considered now.
And you're how old?
I was 10,
okay,
maybe. Yeah, so I just had the time of my life, and I didn't get cast, but I didn't care. I mean, obviously, I was like, oh, that would have been amazing. But there were other opportunities that my mom started to just see coming up on, I think it was on BroadwayWorld.com. And
that experience, I'm assuming, if they don't understand the terrain,
mm-hmm.
at least that experience lets them go, okay, this is not a waste of time.
Yes.
Okay.
And then too, like, it's your own kid, so of course you think they're just wonderful because they are.
Right.
But that affirmation of, oh, she can sing. Like she was hanging in there through every single callback because she really deserves to be up on that stage, like for real. And we just kept going to auditions after that because I had a great experience. And I started making friends at these auditions, and it was fun, and I felt so confident. And they realized that it was a good environment too. So they weren't quite so shy. It's like, is this gonna like not be a good experience for our kid? And then I auditioned for Gypsy, which was not on Broadway yet. It was just the summer run they were doing at the New York City Center. So it was 2007.
Did I see somewhere written that this was with Patti Lupone?
Yeah.
Okay. Because, I mean, I know that's a big deal, but I don't really know how big of a deal that is. So, underline.
Definitely. Okay, so.
Because she is like one of a few people that are kind of Broadway iconic.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Okay.
And it's so like, if this doesn't say anything about my parents, I don't know what does. They didn't know who she was.
Okay.
They didn't know who Arthur Lawrence was. And he wrote Gypsy. He wrote West Side Story. Like, he's one of the great American playwrights. They did not know who Stephen Sondheim was.
Okay.
So I knew nothing. And I'm very grateful for that because it just was a pure experience. And the first audition for that, I didn't even open my mouth. It was totally a typecast, and they just wanted kids that looked like the adults they'd already cast because we had to grow up in the show. And I just so happened to look like Laura Benanti. And then I get to the last audition for that, and I was really one of the only girls left for the part I was auditioning for of Little Louise. And now I look back and I realize, no, like I'm standing in that room with Arthur Lawrence is sitting there talking to me. And like, I did not know who he was. And so we did the summer run. We started to realize, my parents really started to realize like how big of a deal it was. And there were rumblings of maybe it would move to Broadway. So I had the best 2 months of my entire existence. And I was living in New York all of a sudden with my mom. She was there with me. And we were performing 8 shows a week. And I was like, this is it. This is the beginning, you know? And then I went back to school for 7th grade. And a few weeks went by. And they called and said, we're moving the show to Broadway. But we have to measure all the kids and their height because they're getting a little tall.
Yeah.
Specifically me.
Yeah.
I was getting tall. And Patti Lupone is petite. And I was growing like a weed. And so I literally went up to New York with all the rest of the kids. We all met for an appointment there with Arthur, and they measured us. And I just was trying to like slouch as much as I could.
Yeah.
But he looked at me and he said, "You got 6 months, kid." And he said, "I want to give you your Broadway debut. And in 6 months, you're gonna be too tall, but we really want you to like be in this cast." Right. And so that just, my childhood dream came true, and I was still a child, and it was the craziest thing ever. And like, and that too, even then I didn't realize the magnitude of like that show being revived for the first time with Arthur Lawrence directing it. Right. And Patti Lupone starring in it. And it was history being made, and I didn't even realize it. And I look back now and I'm just like, how was that me? I don't know. It's like another life. It was a dream. I dreamt it.
So is it, and I know it's not as if you've been doing 20 years of Broadway, but I mean, do you know the You've Got 6 Months Kid? I mean, that sounds like, you know, a guy in a derby with a cigar, you know, "You got 6 months, kid."
It really does.
But I mean, is that a kindness or a consideration that is typical in that environment? Do you know? Was that even more unusual than it seems like it might be?
The theater world is very interesting, and the fact that was a kindness, but at the same time was totally within the realm of like, it's almost like once you're in the club, you're in. Yeah, I mean, the music industry, I think, is a little like that too. And it's a coveted place to be if you're in theater. Like, being on Broadway is, that's it. That's the very top. And especially being in a show like that show was a really special moment for the theater community. And I definitely realize that now, and I'm very grateful. And I think that Arthur definitely recognized that too. But that was just the kind of person he was, though.
Yeah.
He was just awesome.
Well, It seems like, I don't know, maybe I'm just a cynic, but it seems like there could be both sides. There can be the kindness of, this is your opportunity, but there can also be the flex of, and I have the ability to make this happen.
Yeah.
Right?
Definitely.
You know, the knowledge that I could make this or I can break this. And let me just, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
And he, in particular, I always felt like he waved that magic wand with such joy. Because he had been in that industry for such a long time and loved it and was so excited to be having this experience with this cast. And it just, I mean, it was definitely something really important to him as well. And that we were the people he chose to share that with and to like tell that story again.
Sure.
It was just the best. It was the best ever.
So that's Annie. Well, you didn't do Annie.
I didn't do Annie.
You got through the auditions.
Yeah.
So was this
I did Gypsy. That was the first.
That's your first everything. On Broadway.
Yeah, first.
Did you go back?
I did. And the story of how I got there is really strange and has stuck with me forever and forever will, because it really has shown me that you should take advantage of every opportunity that's given to you.
Okay.
Because when I was in Gypsy, I sang at a DVD signing for, it was this movie that they had put together about the original actresses who were the original orphans in the musical Annie on Broadway.
Okay.
And so they wanted a young girl to sing the songs from Annie. Well, I've had whatever connections to be able to do that.
Right.
And then next thing I know, someone from that is hearing at Carnegie Hall, Andrea McArdle, who was the original Annie, had to drop out of singing the song Tomorrow at a concert they were doing at Carnegie Hall.
Oh, wow.
So, because they had just seen me do it, they called me. And I was beside myself. That is the only time I've ever leaned over a trash can right before going on stage because I thought I was going to get sick because I was so nervous.
Yeah?
Yeah. So I was 13 and Tony Bennett was singing right before me and Kathleen Turner introduced me. And again,
wow,
I didn't know what any of that meant. And I look back now and I'm like, I'm so glad I didn't know because I actually would have gotten sick. I would have just been leaning over the trash can. But from that, because I did that, then the New York Pops Orchestra invited me back again. And I sang more songs from Annie. But that time, the concert was for Charles Strauss's 80th birthday.
Okay.
And I got to meet him in rehearsals, talk to him, and then we did the performance. And then after the concert, we were doing a press thing. Mm-hmm. And we're getting our picture taken. And he just I love him. He just kind of leans over to me and he goes, you know, they're going to revive Bye Bye Birdie and they're auditioning for it right now. I was like, oh, I'm well aware. It's like, did you audition? And I said, well, I'm not old enough. At that time, I was 14. It's like, you have to be 15 and I'm only 14.
Okay.
And he said, well, I'll have them call your agent and you just tell them I sent you. I was like, okay. So thankfully I told my dad about it. He called my agent, told them, and I auditioned and I ended up being in the show. So that was my second show on Broadway. But it was just the weirdest, I didn't even know how I got there. And
Sure.
I remember sitting back thinking about it and talking it through with my dad after we got the call when I was cast. And it just was, I was like, whoa. And he's like, see, this is why you take the opportunities that are placed in front of you. You just go with it, you know?
Sure.
Because you don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
So, yep.
The way that comes back around, it reminds me of the reality of my first audition with Tim McGraw. I was recommended to him by somebody that knew his producer who knew I was from Texas, and he was from Texas. He had never even heard me play.
That's really cool.
He just, it was just here, I'll throw your name in the hat.
This feels like a symbiosis.
Okay. Okay. So
that's really cool.
When you're at that age, I did one show in the presence of Tony Bennett.
Okay.
And when you're with people like that, you learn what professionalism really is. Yeah. I mean, he was there for sound check. He sang one song with Tim McGraw. They did a duet on one of Tony Bennett's records. So he showed up in New York City at Madison Square Garden, and he was at sound check, very put together.
Yeah.
Requested of Tim if Tim was okay with him speaking to the audience prior to their performance.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
and then during the show, he comes out and you could see the dust in the spotlights that wouldn't dare to land on Tony Bennett. I mean, You could see it, all the little dust. And I'm not me.
Oh my God.
I mean, it was so immaculate. He was such a pro. Could you see any of that at these kind of performances that you're at your age? Are you don't know the impact he's had on the industry,
right?
But can you tell they are something special?
So in relation to him and that performance in particular, I was thrown in so last minute that I didn't really get to simmer in with everyone and everything that was going on backstage. It was just like, we need someone, and there I was, and plop her out there. But like with Patti Lupone, Laura Benanti, Boyd Gaines, John Stamos, I mean, these are all people who are just powerhouses in what they're doing. And Patti in particular, like, she definitely has a reputation for speaking up.
Oh, sure. Which she's earned.
She has earned.
Okay.
But, like, in a professional setting that I always saw her in, the only time I ever saw her just totally really be super passionate and call people out was when things were, like, dangerous backstage. And that was it. And I was there the night that she very famously stopped the show. It was like the second to last show of Gypsy.
Right.
And I had returned for like the final show to be there. And we heard it over the like intercom backstage. All of a sudden, the music stopped. She's like, "Who do you think you are?" It's like someone in the audience taking pictures. But like that, she stopped the show with that specific purpose of, this is inappropriate and I need to end this. And she has a power and ability to just do it in that moment. And she took that moment and otherwise, like, just so passionate, professional, caring, loving, like, yeah. Every person I encountered through all of those experiences was just the best.
Wow.
Like, I stood in an elevator with Bernadette Peters, and I'm standing there, like, shaking in my boots.
Right.
I know who you are.
Yeah.
You don't know me, but I know you. And she just looked over at me and, like, just started, like, talking to me. And just normal and kind and sweet. Yeah. And then got off the elevator and was like, "Have a great show." And, like, those are the things you never forget.
Right.
You know? They're just people.
So, with the Broadway scene, it seemed, we've seen some of the country music folks go back and forth in the Broadway thing. You see pop people go back and forth. Now, there are people that can really, they're there because they deserve to be there. And there are those that are there because they think they'll sell some tickets because they can say parentheses of American Idol.
Right.
Now, the country scene, you can totally tell me I'm wrong, but it looks to me like if you're a country artist, you better establish yourself as a country artist first, because they won't buy into you in doing theater. Right. Unless you've already established yourself, and then they'll buy into it. Even if you're capable,
right,
they'll buy into it because they know you'll bring them some notoriety. Jennifer Nettles taking over for Sarah Bareilles,
right,
in Waitress.
Yeah.
Laura Bell Bundy. I think she had the first. What's the main character's name in Legally Blonde?
Yeah, she was Elle Woods.
Okay, right.
Yep.
She tried. She did some stuff in the country scene, but she didn't really drive a stake in the country market. Therefore, she had some success, but not at all like Sugarland.
Right. Yeah.
Is you're doing the pop stuff now?
Yeah. Is
that different? Does it add to what you're doing musically now? Is it an obstacle? How does that land for you?
Sometimes I feel like it's two sides of like one coin for me, right, and they're attached, but it's almost like I'm not really allowed to have both at the same time. It's strange. Now, I haven't...
Allowed by who? Because if you really know some of the players, we both know that's ridiculous.
Right.
But
right.
But we both know it's ridiculous because a lot of people don't know that Richard Gere really played the piano in Pretty Woman, that he really played the trumpet in the Cotton Club.
Yeah.
That, Gregory Hines, who was in Running Scared with Billy Crystal, was Sammy Davis Jr.'s protege as a tap dancer.
Yeah.
We know that commingles a lot.
Yes.
But when you say that you're not allowed, who is it that doesn't allow you to do both?
It's kind of... Well, I appreciate we sit and we have this conversation, and I feel like I can meld those two worlds through, this is a part of my story. And there have been many instances over the years where I have been made to feel like I kind of have to, choose. And it's well, you're not doing theater right now. So, that is maybe that's confusing to people, and you just need to present your current artist package. That's it. And okay, but my past is part of why I am who I am today, which is someone who creates art that is reflective of the things I'm experiencing and the things that I've been through. So they are still interconnected and always will be in some facet.
Right.
And yeah, I think the whole branding thing when you're in the music industry, sometimes it's I don't know, conversations, and I to an extent I do understand some of the points that will be made, but it can be very pigeonholed.
Right.
And there has to be some room for nuance sometimes.
Sure.
I am a multi-dimensional person, as is everyone. So I appreciate we can sit and have this conversation, and I feel like I can be multidimensional,
Yeah.
And yeah. So, but in the theater worlds, I love you all, but it's when someone who comes from TV and film, and they didn't start in theater necessarily, when they cross over and they do a Broadway show, because they are a big name, like John Stamos, who I was in Bye Bye Birdie with, it was really hard for him to overcome some of the critics when he deserved rave reviews, because he was incredible. And he's so talented, but it's well, we don't really want to claim you. Yeah. And that's kind of a negative thing that I don't agree with.
Yeah.
But it can be flipped as well. And I feel like a lot of current musical movies that are based on musicals being adapted for film. Right. I feel like there's often times where actors or actresses are cast and they have them sing, and I don't go see that movie because I saw a preview and it's just not the same. But they would never cast someone who was a Broadway person. And I'm they are just as talented, and that is more of their lane.
Right.
But you won't even give them that lane in film because you're not a TV and film person.
Right. I get that. And I want to ask you about that further. But before we do that, I want to throw to Instruments for Education. Buddy of mine, Troy Castellano, collects instruments all around the Nashville area to donate to schools that don't have budgets, kids that can't afford instruments, so he can kind of keep the music going. So we're going to share that.
Love it.
And then I want to find out what team you're on.
Okay.
So you can tell me. Instruments for Education.
Hey, Troy Castellano here from Instruments for Education. We're at one of our first stops here today on a Friday. We're delivering some tambourines and some shakers for an elementary school classroom. We're at Liberty Elementary School. Hey guys, I'm Troy Castellano. We started Instruments for Education as a way to put instruments into the hands of kids. Sometimes we donate directly to students, sometimes to teachers, and sometimes to full classrooms in their schools. We're based out of Nashville, Tennessee, and we service the Middle Tennessee area. Since we started, we've reached over 100 schools and donated over 500 instruments. If you'd like to make a request for an instrument, or you have an instrument to donate, or would like to contribute financially, visit our website at instrumentsforeducation.org. Thanks for supporting us, and thanks for helping keep music alive.
Okay, so you were talking about how theater people won't get a break because they're viewed as TV people.
Yeah. Sometimes the lines, they don't like to like blur them and stuff.
Which I think can, in the country music world, I mean, certainly if you're a Broadway star, they're not going to be open to you being a country artist. Sometimes it's justified, sometimes it's not. Some people, and this may be to your advantage, some people that have spent a lot of time in the Broadway scene don't know how to let it go.
Yeah, definitely.
And I know, just from my own limited theater experience, playing keyboards with Tim McGraw, I had an understanding about reaching the back row from my theater experience.
Yeah.
Which is very different than how much you have to move your face when you're on a movie screen that's as big as the wall.
So
there are
different.
differences.
Yes.
Yeah, there are differences. And I don't know if this is true, but I have always thought of the theater camps when it gets into other kinds of music, doing other things, as kind of Team Adina, Team Kristen.
Okay.
And I don't know if that really makes sense or not. Kristen Chenoweth, Idina Menzel, the leads in Wicked. And
the OGs.
Right. And I don't even know if this is true, but Kristen Chenoweth seems to be a little more traditional.
Yeah.
Where Idina Menzel, I think, came in through Rent, which was kind of a rock show.
Yeah.
Because I've read where they sang rock and roll songs.
Oh, yeah.
And her path seems to be very different than Kristen Chenoweth's. Am I seeing two different kinds of things happening there? Is that a reasonable?
Yeah.
So what are the things, and how does that relate to what you're doing?
I mean, I think that, and the statements I've made leading up to this right now, it's all very nuanced based on the actor, actress, performer, whoever it is too. Sure. And so you get like a Kristen Chenoweth, who she is an incredible soprano and can sing operatic pieces, but she also, just her style is definitely, it lends itself so well to live theater because she is so easily seen from the back row because of how she presents herself on stage. And Idina Menzel is able to tap into that, but as we saw her in the Rent movie, now the Rent movie is one where they actually took the cast from the original Broadway production, some of them.
Most of them.
Yeah. And they put them in the movie.
Okay.
And that's one of the best musical, like, movie adaptions I've ever seen. And I swear it's in part because of that. Because the people who, like, those are their roles. They embody those roles. Right. They did them 8 shows a week. And then you stick them in front of a camera. And if they're able to kind of adapt themselves to then be camera friendly, it is a more contained sort of thing that you're experiencing. They don't have to reach the back row.
Right.
But so many of them are able to access doing that. And I definitely feel like I've always fallen into that category of theater people. And that I always loved theater, but I really loved music first.
Right.
That was the core thing for me always. And actually, the thing that got me into songwriting was, well, Taylor Swift,
Yeah,
of course. Hello.
Yeah.
I was the perfect age. I was like 14 years old, 13 years old when she first put out her first single and then first album.
Right.
And there I was living in New York pursuing my dreams, and I'm watching this parallel journey of a girl who's a little bit older than me also pursuing a dream that...
Okay, now what age is this?
So I was probably 14.
Okay, but where is that in Taylor's discography?
She would have, her first album would
Country
have just...
Taylor?
Yeah, Country
Okay.
Taylor.
Okay.
Would have just come out. I think my dad bought me her first album like right after her first single started appearing on the radio.
Okay.
And he pretty quickly caught on because we liked to listen to country radio. Because
Right.
I listened to it every night as a little kid because it would help me go to sleep. I'd turn it on the little clock radio I had on my bedside table because the storytelling just helped me to kind of wind down. And I have always struggled with falling asleep, and that helped me a lot. So my whole basis of like songwriting, I always attributed it to listening to country music because I knew those were songwriters who wrote those songs. Like, I don't know. I thought like in musical theater, it's composers. They're songwriters too. It's the same thing, just a different realm. Right. Same, different, but in my mind, I'm like, oh, if you're writing a song, it's like a country song, right?
Yeah.
And so then Taylor, very, very beginnings of Taylor, just barely, people are just starting to catch wind of her. I get her first record. I'm so like into these songs. I'm so enamored with the fact that like here's someone that I could identify with the unique journey that she was on for her age and what she was doing, because I was doing that just in something different,
right,
but similar. And I don't know. I was like, I think I want to like learn to play guitar because like that's how she writes her songs, and I can play a little piano, but I don't know. I thought it was cool that here's a young girl playing guitar, and then that's what led me into learning to play guitar and starting to write songs, and just that was the very beginnings. But I always felt like my theater background did influence my writing too. So.
Okay, so, I have the big picture of Taylor.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that you don't. I would just put this on the table so you realize this as you tell the story. Her first single was Tim McGraw.
Yes.
I was on tour with Tim McGraw, and we had received that song before it was released. So my initial introduction to Taylor was we were playing that song as the pre-show music in between other songs before Tim came out on stage. And she actually opened some shows for us in the round with just her and her guitar.
That's
now,
crazy.
I'm wondering, big picture for you, you start Broadway. You start big, then you are going back to figure out the intimate side of sitting, writing the songs.
Yeah.
To then move over into the pop scene.
Yeah.
She starts, I'm assuming, I've never heard of any Broadway past that she had.
No.
How do you see her as compared to some of these other people that you're talking about that have the capability to cross some of those barriers, or some that don't? What is your perspective on her as the storytelling songwriter into the pop scene, into the big arenas? And then what's your take on her vocally with what she did Cats? Because you know better than I, but I feel like, holy smoke, she has worked. She has grown. That's not...
Yeah.
Technology can't do everything.
No.
So where is that in the big picture as to what you're talking about with your experience?
So It's so funny that you ask me this too, because I feel like I have some pretty strong opinions about it. And I've talked about it quite a bit with some of my peers
Right.
in the music industry, like we're doing right now. And because I think it's a hot topic, because I think a lot of people have very strong opinions about her career in its entirety, about her true level of talent, whatever that means to each person. And I look at her, I recall being a young girl, younger than her, always have been this whole time, a little bit behind.
Mhm.
And here she was, I knew what unbelievable vocalists sounded like. She wasn't that. She was like other. Like her singing was just real. It was just what I could relate to as I'm jumping around with my hairbrush in my bedroom, singing along to these songs. It just
Sure.
was raw with emotion of a young girl expressing her experiences through her songs. And then you see that progression of her voice just growing and developing. And she's always been able to sing, but like now her abilities, I think she just sings so much and has performed so much that, I mean, over time, you have to just keep picking up on the things that are like, it's with anyone too, as you get older, you start to realize where your strengths lie and then how you can lean into those strengths too.
Right.
And she does a lot more of that now. But her talent to me, that is the other, is like watching the DVD that I have of Freddie Mercury with Queen at Live Aid
Right.
in that stadium. And his ability to just have that entire audience in the palm of his hand doing vocal warm-ups. There are so few modern artists that can do that and like really, they just know how to do it. Like you don't
Meaning
really
relate to the audience.
yeah, and you can't teach someone how to just walk on a stage and have everyone in the palm of your hand. Like some people just have it. And like some people grow into it. But she has always had that, is my impression of her. 'Cause I just remember watching videos of her playing live when she was still hardly anyone. She was just starting to come up, and I'd get on YouTube and I'd try to find little videos of her. And it was just undeniable. Like, but it reminded me of how in theater as a kid, you go into these auditions and you hear the term it factor being thrown around constantly. It's like, at least at that time in theater, like that was
Sure.
the thing, looking for the it factor.
Well, there was a TV show called The It Factor. I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, and you can't always put your finger on it too. You just know when someone has it, and she has it like all the way. So that's why I think part of why just about everything she touches kind of turns to gold. Like it's just in her, you know? And she is just such an incredible performer that she can sell out a stadium multiple nights in a row now.
See, I would push back on that.
Yeah. And many do.
But I would push back on it because I think it takes away her willingness to work.
Oh, yeah. No, for sure.
And that's where I feel like I remember not this tour, and I don't want to get too down the Taylor train, because I'm more interested in how it applies to what you're doing, and I want to get to that. But one of the things that I think is not stated, I have never heard anybody acknowledge this. When she did her last tour, it seemed like there were a lot of guest appearances during her tour, more so than I've seen this time.
Oh, yeah.
More guests showing up, Ed Sheeran at one, Camila Cabello, whatever.
Yeah.
All these different pop artists and country artists. And anytime I saw footage of that show, the one time that guest was showing up, she wasn't reading lyrics off a phone. They weren't stumbling around with choreography.
Not at all.
They weren't winging it because they had just said, yeah, come on out and you can sing the chorus of my song. They had worked out something with the song. They'd worked out an arrangement. She was singing verses.
Yep.
Now I know she seems to have a crazy memory for all kinds of lyrics.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen that.
She does, yeah.
I've seen that, but I really believe that if you're there at her show tonight, y'all are working that song for, however long it takes that afternoon to nail it.
Yeah.
And
she wants to take the time.
Right.
To do that.
Right.
And that is, it's amazing.
I mean, she works. And I've seen the opposite, where a big name nominated for all the awards goes out on a tribute show for Ray Charles or Willie Nelson or whoever, and they sing a couple of lines and then they hold the mic down to let everybody sing with them because they didn't bother to learn the song.
Yeah. They
and
showed
I see
up.
that. And I think that's important. Now, people in my industry, maybe they rehearse like that. Maybe they don't. Maybe they learn the lyrics, but they don't have to learn choreography. It's a country show.
Right.
It's not choreographed.
Right.
Sometimes artists show up for sound check. Sometimes they don't. I'm fortunate that I'm working for an artist that does care about sound check, does care about how things sound.
Yeah.
Cagle wants it to be great. He was retired for a number of years. Now he's back and he wants everybody to go, wow, this is solid. Yeah. So the band rehearses and he rehearses and all that. Everybody doesn't do that. Now, I don't see shortcuts like that even as an option with what you're doing with theater.
Definitely not.
Because you got too many moving parts.
Yeah.
Now, Taylor kind of led you into your songwriting.
Yeah.
You've got all the Broadway experience. Now you have this pop record that you're putting out there. And I know you haven't told me what they are because you wanted to save it all.
Yeah.
But how does all of that add up to where you are now? And how does that result in this record?
So I feel like this album, so it has 7 songs. And the title is Orange.
Okay.
Which is also a song on the record. It's the first song on the album. It's called Orange. And the color orange and the number 7 have been recurring little things in my life that I feel like are sort of angel nods in special moments, important moments, sad moments, heartbreaking moments. I often will see the number 7, or there will be 7 things of this or 7 of that, or the day is the 7th of whatever, the 7th month. And then the color orange just appears all over the place for me in ways where it started to become noticeable.
Okay.
So I have obviously ruminated on those things for a very long time because they've been meaningful to me and my family. And
okay, so you say your family. So I recognize how you can see something magical that you see, that you get.
Yeah.
I can think of when I was talking about a record and all of a sudden it's the one record that's sitting by the register when I go in. And I think that's amazing.
Yep.
And you could never make somebody else understand that.
Right.
Now you just said it's been special, or whatever word you used, to you and your family.
And my family.
So do they also see this
yes.
Orange and 7 thing?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And actually, not to be totally morbid, but when my brother passed away at his funeral, and I think I tell this story right. My grandmother was telling it again recently, and then there were some things that I was like, wait, hold on. But My recollection is at my brother's funeral.
And you were a child.
I was very young.
Okay.
So I didn't know this, but I was told this later when I was older.
Right.
That my grandmother ordered flowers just for some different people in the family too, just to kind of take things off the plates of a couple people. And told the florist that, you know, these flowers are for an infant's funeral, so please make them appropriate. And so we get to the church that day, and all the flowers are very appropriate, except there's like one bouquet that has these orange flowers in it. And they just follow us all day long. We're at the church, we go to the cemetery, we go to the after little like lunch thing, and these orange flowers are just everywhere. And so my grandmother's like, who sent those orange flowers? Like, that's so inappropriate. Well, finally she gets a chance to go to like look to see who they're from. Mm-hmm. They were from her. It just was like, of course she didn't choose them, but it was something that she could kind of focus on during that day, and that my mom kind of put a focus on too, because it took your mind off of what was really going on. And just felt a little silly, especially when they figured out like, haha, joke's on you. Yeah. Like, but it just sort of felt symbolic. It just, in the fact that it was able to bring a moment of a little laughter to a really horrible day.
Sure.
But my brother, who was born after Jay died, my brother Jack, as a little kid, he was obsessed with the color orange. And he is still obsessed with the color orange. And it's like everything has to be orange. And it just feels so meaningful. And I don't know what it is, but that's kind of like the basis of where that started to come from. And then for me, I'll see orange more. I think there have been times when my mom has noticed orange in a moment where it stuck out to her and becomes like a pattern, but the number 7 especially too. So I don't know. I just really wanted to bring those elements together one day in some way. And I'd never released a full record. I mean, I've put out a lot of singles.
Right.
When I was in college, I was kind of toying with the pop country thing, and never totally fit, never totally felt right, but that's what brought me to Nashville. So I just was sort of going with it till I figured it out. And I went to one show here at Mercy Lounge.
Okay.
And it changed my life. Like, I knew my path after going. And there's a Canadian artist, her name is Lights.
Okay.
And
Light?
Lights. Yeah.
Lights. Okay, plural.
Lights. And I was familiar with her before, but she had put out a record called Little Machines at that time. And I was a junior at Belmont.
Okay.
And I was getting really into that album. I just stumbled across it, and it was so good. And it was like challenging what I thought pop music was. And I found a friend to go with me to this show randomly one night. And I left that show feeling just like reawakened musically, and everything made sense. And my peers and my professors telling me, I mean, you seem more pop. It all started to make sense because I didn't get where they were going.
They were saying that already.
Yeah. And I just couldn't, I'm just having trouble like putting those pieces together. I don't know what it means for me. Like, as a writer, as an artist, like, my artistry, I've never felt like it sits there, but you're telling me that. But I don't know. I'm just not there yet. I'm confused. And then this show, I just was like, light bulb.
Well, not challenging the light bulb, but categories are so often such a trap.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't do Broadway. Okay.
Right.
Well, what if the Broadway show is based on Billy Joel's music?
Right.
Or Carole King's music? Or the Four Seasons music?
Right.
Well, now what does that mean?
Yeah.
This record it's not country. Okay, it's not country. Taylor Swift How many people clung to Taylor Swift for another 2 years because she was selling more records than anybody?
Yeah.
And they wanted to claim it, even though she was saying she was a pop artist.
Yep.
You know, Jennifer Nettles is doing Broadway. She's a country artist, but she's got a duet with Bon Jovi. And it was nominated for a rock and roll award, and it was nominated for a country award.
Yeah.
So what does pop mean? Maybe it just means country radio won't play it. Today.
Right. Right. So yeah, like
So you're awakened.
I'm awakened.
To what? To doing what you want to do, or to now hearing something in your head that you want to create that you weren't creating before?
Definitely that.
Okay.
And she at that time was still very much, and she still is in the realm of, it's very electronic, like driven pop music. And it was very unique and something that I'd never really experienced before. And it just totally inspired me. And that helped guide me down the path to get to where I am now, where I would say that I'm very alternative rock pop. There's a lot of real drums, of my husband playing on my records, and my friends playing electric guitar, but there's a lot of synth, and I think the main thing I took away from that show that I didn't even fully realize at the time, but I definitely realize now, was it made me feel like I walked into Belmont University wanting to be the next Taylor Swift. I walked out of Belmont University wanting to be the next Emma Rowley. And that was it. And like, that show was a pivotal piece. And it just was like that final puzzle piece that helped me to understand what everyone around me was expressing too. I was like, I get it. Okay. I see. Like, here's an artist. She's just doing her. She's being her. Whatever that is. I couldn't really put her in a box at all, genre-wise. But she's very successful. And she creates incredible music. And it just really opened my eyes. So that was... I wish I could like relive that show sometimes.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. Yeah. Unexpected. It's part of why it was so great, I think.
Well, and what a great realization, you know. And it's not as if that can't change.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I mean, did Darius Rucker have that when he was with Hootie and the Blowfish, or did he have it after Hootie and the Blowfish when he became Darius Rucker?
Yeah.
It's, you know, the thing that's I mean, for crying out loud, Dolly Parton's got a rock and roll record coming out later this year.
Yeah.
You know?
So
I mean, it's just nice to see that you aren't seeking the path, that now that you feel like you're on it. Okay, so with this record, the record that you have now, sure, you want it to succeed. Sure, you want it to find an audience.
Yeah.
But does it have to? And the reason I'm asking that is because it's created around Orange, the number 7, your husband playing drums, your friends writing songs. I mean, there's I assume a piece of that that's like, you know what? Even if this one doesn't land with anybody and the next one does, this one is me finding me with my people.
Yes.
At some level.
Making this record took, I don't know how many years. I haven't really done the math because it's so like emotional for me to think about and like stressful. Like
the actual composition of the record, the selection, or just the journey that you had to take to get to where it existed?
It's really the journey.
Okay.
'Cause I feel like I was really starting to tap into my sound with the singles that I was releasing, but I was like not quite there just yet with the songs themselves, of it being where I have another light bulb moment of I know what I'm trying to say now. This, as my artistry in this time in my life, like, this is the message. I was sort of dancing around it, and I hadn't quite entirely recognized it yet. And so through making this album, I feel like I did get there. And it took time, and it took a lot of patience and kindness of the people that worked on it with me. My husband, Kip Allen, and my producer and amazing, wonderful friend, Todd Wright in Virginia. And so also crossing those state lines was hard too, of like,
sure,
we're all working remotely, and it was through COVID, through a lot of it. And I think that just aided in injecting essence into this album of like a lot of yearning, but a lot of just like, we're just throwing stuff at the walls to see what sticks. And it was my first time really wanting to lean into like more real live instrumentation in these songs too. And that was a little scary for me. And I love alternative and rock music.
Yeah.
But I always felt like my voice didn't quite fit that. And so through this album, I feel like I figured out a way to make it so that my voice is jiving with the musical elements.
Sure.
And I feel like I explored stuff with my voice to like help it to fit that came naturally because I have an affinity for it. I just wasn't really brave enough before to try it or whatever. So I feel like it was so appropriate for me to call the album Orange because writing the song Orange was a pivotal songwriting moment for me. It's one of my favorite songs I've ever written. I feel like it's one of the most honest and raw songs I've ever written too. And I feel like it encapsulates more than one story in my life. Like it resembles a lot of things to me that were very important. And so writing that song, it felt like I put a lot of things to rest that were just stirring around in my soul for a really long time. Yeah. And so I just kept riding that wave. And I let that carry me through the rest of the album. And like, it was one of the first times in a long time where I just felt like I had vision again. And it all just started to become clear after things feeling a little muddy for a while because I was still trying to figure it out. But yeah, it's just, I don't know if I've ever been quite so proud of anything that I've ever created. And I did it for me. And I think that's part of why it feels so special, is just because I did it for me. I wasn't doing it for anyone else.
Sure.
And I like gave myself permission to do that, which was really big for me too. So,
well, here's the thing I would offer. To go back to your relationship with Taylor Swift. Mm-hmm. You were impacted by her first record and her second record.
Yep.
And her third record. And at the time that she was investing in that music, that was her at that time.
Yeah.
And there's a lot that has grown since then. You put everything you've got into this one.
Yeah.
You will have more.
Yes. Yeah.
I want to visit what we did. Yeah. Because it's certainly different than what you did. So let's share that with them. We'll come back, get your thoughts on that. And then you said you had a question for me.
I do.
So we'll come back to that, and then we'll make sure everybody knows how to find Orange. So this is Emma Rowley.
You were the night cloud in my skies, watering down the tears from my eyes, using my pain as your disguise. Now I'm orange. It was never yours. The color of my soul, it feels so personal. Now I'm orange. Is it something I do? Is it something I say? Now I know that it's you making me think this way, and I'm waking up to watch the sunrise. Open the curtains, I am baptized. I'm seeing me, seeing you in a new light. Now I'm orange. It was never yours. The color of my soul, it feels so personal. Now I'm orange. I'm taking back what was always mine. I was hiding there the whole time. I'm taking back what was always mine. I was hiding there the whole time. Now I'm orange. It was never yours. Now I'm orange. It was never yours. The color of my soul, it feels so personal. Now I'm orange. Now I'm orange. I'm taking back what was always mine. I was hiding there the whole time.
So to know how important that song was to you and for you to let me do that with you,
Yeah.
I very much appreciate. Now, how did we do?
Oh, we killed it.
Yeah? Yeah.
Yeah, I was very excited to hear that song in that light with piano for the first time. So it was chef's kiss. Chef's kiss all the way.
Jeff's kiss.
You gotta start using that now.
I will.
That's good.
I'll give you credit.
One of your new little taglines. But I love when artists will share multiple versions of a song because I think that it's fascinating how a song can live different lives through different interpretations of it. And so on my album, it's a banger, but the way that we wrote it wasn't like that. It sort of turned into that by accident. I didn't really intend for it to as we were like starting to produce it. Most of the songs in my record, that's exactly how it went. Like started as a ballad, turned into something that was not really a ballad. They all seem to kind of grow through it too. Yeah. But stripping it way back like that and sort of breathing a new life into it, like you never know how someone is going to connect to or relate with a song. And so maybe that life that we gave the song in that moment is the way that this person over here is going to be able to connect to it. But if they heard my record, they'd be like, I'd skip it.
Well, I'm glad you're happy, because now I'm glad I didn't know how important it was, and the Easter eggs of Orange, because I might have been a little more anxious about the gravity of what we were doing. But I'm glad you're happy with it. I think it was nice.
Very. It was so fun.
And I'm glad to shine a light on some more of your stuff. So
thank you.
Very good.
Yeah, I'm very excited about it, and I am already just cooking up the next batch of songs.
Good.
We'll see what they turn into.
Well, I'll help shine the light on them, whatever I can do.
I appreciate it.
I know we want to make sure everybody knows how to find it, but what did you have for me?
So, my question for you, based off your awesome interview with our dear friend, Maddie True, she mentions she has a document of things that you have said to her. And it's a whole myriad of all kinds of isms or reminders.
Yeah.
And that got me thinking, I'm wondering if there's a piece of advice that was given to you at any point in time that you would write down in a document like she did with stuff you've said, but that it's impacted you, the way things you have said have impacted her. Something that's really, really stuck with you. Piece of advice, piece of wisdom, anything like that.
Well, I don't know that this is necessarily wisdom. I guess it is if you do it.
Okay.
And you would understand this very much coming from the theater aspect. Once you get to a big arena, you could never do this because you're up on a giant stage. So this doesn't become an option. But as we play in clubs, as we play in bars, as you have one hit record and play the Mercy Lounge, you will have the opportunity when you're talking to a fan, when you're finishing the show, you will have the opportunity to, instead of walk to the side and around the monitor board, you could drop down, sit on the edge, sign an autograph, and then jump down to the floor. You have the opportunity to break the fourth wall.
Yes.
That shatters the show.
Yeah.
And the audience doesn't realize necessarily that you're doing that.
Right.
They don't say, oh, he just made himself look like the bar band that played here the last 4 nights.
Right.
But if you take the extra time to walk off to the side, then come around, as opposed to jump off the front, once you jump off the front, you're not the star anymore. You're not the person that I should have bought a ticket for. You're the person that's playing every night for free.
Right.
And that little extra moment of you telling somebody, I earned the fact that you stood in line for this ticket.
Yeah.
I'm not better than somebody else, but you paid for the ticket because you thought it would be something a little extra.
Yeah.
If I'm going to take the shortcut off the stage, I'll take the shortcut on my song. I'll take the shortcut on my lyrics by having a phone on the mic stand.
Right.
I'm cheapening the performance.
That is so true.
So now all of that was not relayed to me. What was relayed to me was one night I thought I was doing somebody a solid, helping them something, and in order to get there quickly, I went off the corner of the stage. And somebody said, dude, walk around.
Yeah.
I built all the rest of it in.
Yeah.
You know, back, and I was like, what? Oh, that, oh.
Yeah.
You know, and then I was like, good idea.
Yeah.
Good point. So yeah.
Definitely.
Don't break the fourth wall.
Definitely. That's like, is reminding me of things in theater that we would not do.
Right.
And the time when you are having that interactive time with your audience, that it's super personal level, is when you walk out the stage door after the show.
Right.
Yeah. And the thing that I do love about not being in theater is that while you're performing, the way you can interact with your audience is just so much freer. I love that. But it's still, you're on. You're almost in a character a little bit, but you're in that moment and you're like helping to create that magical moment. You got to keep that going through the show. And then after is the time when that's a new mode that you go into. And I always appreciate it when the artists that I'm seeing, I don't know, it's like unwritten rules and kind of it just helps keep it magical.
Yeah,
you know?
you have to maintain that. You know, I understand and agree with the idea that, oh, they're just regular people. Okay, that's fine. But you have to balance that with, then why am I standing in line and why am I buying a ticket?
Right, exactly.
You want it to be something special. So,
definitely.
So treat them like it's something special. So everybody thinks it is. Yeah. And you're special.
One.
So thanks for making the time for this.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This has been so fun.
I love having you in my world now.
I know.
And let's make some more music.
Definitely.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Tell everybody how to find your stuff.
The way to find me. So my name's Emma Rowley, like Roly Poly Oly. I am all over the interwebs, but you can definitely find me on Instagram, TikTok, but stream my music anywhere, Spotify, Apple Music, all the places. So I got it set up where they just blast my music out to any new streaming platforms that show up too. So
excellent.
If it's there, I should be there. And if I'm not, let me know because I'll get on there for you. But yeah.
We'll get you there. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We good?
And scene.
Well, guys, that wraps it up for this week's interview with Emma Rowley. Check out Orange and the rest of her record. I know you're going to dig it. And for all the conversations about Broadway, somehow I did not mention to her that I also played a role in Bye Bye Birdie, not on Broadway, but at 15 years old in Gainesville High School, I was Birdie, complete with greaseback hair and a gold lame suit. Now, don't tell her. We'll see how long it takes her to listen to this interview. A little bit of homework. October 20th, this Friday, Carolyn Dawn Johnson is dropping a new single, Roadblocks. Carolyn's a good friend and a great artist. Hasn't had a new song in a while, so everybody's looking forward to this one. So check out Roadblocks. And as always, thank you to Randy Allen for putting together a killer video for us, Tommy Leland for mixing the music, and Jonathan Warren for putting together the interview for us. If you've got any thoughts or questions, you can email us at jeff@mcmahononkeys.com and certainly subscribe so you get notifications for upcoming episodes. Thanks so much. Until next time, this is McMahon on Keys.